Swahili, Urdu, Ukrainian, Polish. I don't remember. So I've noticed over time, over these 30 years, there tends to be errors in writing tend to come in patterns. So one thing I would like to say in terms of grammar, I often tell my students, it's very much like mathematics. There are particular rules and you hold to them. You can't do anything you want willy-nilly with, if you're sitting down to trigonometry or calculus or something. There are rules that you must follow, and it's the same with grammar. There are rules that you must follow, which to me at a Christian Writers Conference makes the most sense because, of course, our God is a God of order. You look around at all that he created and there is an order to it. There are rules that govern everything is here. This God who took subatomic particles and created atoms and molecules, this same God who put galaxies spinning across the universe, that God put everything together with rules. We know gravity works. We know gravity works so well that we're careful if there's a situation where we might fall. We know Newton's 3 laws of motion govern much of what we do every day. When you take a ketchup bottle and shake it like so to get the ketchup to come out, you are dealing with Newton's first law of motion. So our God wrote out rules that govern the universe, and there are rules that govern grammar. Now, why is this important to us as writers? Wouldn't an editor or an agent see the value of your writing and say, oh, but these ideas are so good? Maybe, probably not. If the writing is truly filled with grammatical errors, quite honestly, the manuscript might be just set aside and the person might be thinking, you know what, I can't even take this on. Same thing I say to my students, same thing I say to you. The example I give my students is the fact that you're in college means you're not going to just show up at a job site and fill out an application. Those days are gone. What you will be doing is sending out a cover letter and a resume of some sort. Mostly electronic, but sometimes on paper. Sometimes some places still, I've run across places that are asking for paper. Having it filled with grammatical errors, I don't even understand spelling errors in this day of spell check. I do have issues with grammar check. I've run across places where it's telling me it's wrong and I'm looking at it saying, no, it's really not wrong. So my grammar check is turned off. But the same with mathematics. It's good to know that you know it's correct. Never mind the grammar check told you it's correct. Sending out something that's filled with errors is, and I mentioned this in my handout, would be the same thing as going, if you were going to meet an agent in person or an editor in person, to say, I think you'd be interested in my work. And you show up for this little interview and you've got a gentleman maybe has a grease spot on his tie, or ladies, we have a run on our pantyhose, or we've got spinach from lunch stuck between our teeth. It would be a horrible first impression. So we don't want that to be the impression when we first send something out. There are 5 main categories that show up, and the ones that I see most typical: run-ons, fragments, problems with subject-verb agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement and other pronoun errors, and then modifier errors. Some punctuation marks will need to be discussed, but as we talk about some of these other things, we will see how they come into play. I'm hoping to be able to use my whiteboard. Can you see it and can you read it? Grammar, which you really need to know.
As long as you're in speaker view, I think it's easy to see. So if everybody's in speaker view, they can see it. Yeah.
I think the writing is a little light.
Okay.
For me to read. I can see grammar, but the words underneath that, I can't read very well.
Very good. No, thank you for letting me know, because I thought I was going to be cutesy and use the colored markers, the green and the blue. No. I will
But
just.
your lighting, all I see is the reflection of your light.
Okay. Oh. I wonder if I can. Is that better?
Not really.
Now that made it worse.
Oh. How about that?
That's better.
That's better?
Better.
Okay. All right. All right. To get us started, the basic structure in writing, of course, is the sentence. I know much of this is going to be review for you, but we need 3 parts to the sentence to have it be a complete sentence. We must have a subject, we must have a verb, and it must be a complete thought. Now, the idea of that we must have a subject sometimes it gets a little tricky. Close the door. Close the door. Here's my verb. I'll underline it twice. This is the object of the verb. The door is what is being closed. Where's my subject? In English, there are 3 times that we are allowed to leave words out of a sentence and it's still considered correct. The subject here, you close the door. In English, when we have a request or a command, we can leave off the you. It's known as the you understood or the unspoken you. So this sentence still has a subject. We're allowed to leave it off. There are 2 other examples of words we can leave out. One is, well, I'll get to the one later. And the other one may or may not come up, but the other one actually we'll be talking about later. This is what is known as a simple sentence. On my handout, if you didn't print it out, please feel free. I did check to see that it's there. There's a section that says handouts on the dashboard page, and you can go and print it out. This is known as a simple sentence. It has 1 subject, 1 verb, and it is a complete thought. Now that doesn't change if I add a compound subject and a compound verb. Henry and Ida went fishing. I now have what's known as a compound subject. I have 2 parts to my subject, but it's still considered 1 subject. Henry and Ida went fishing and drove home. Now I have a compound predicate. Henry and Ida, my compound subject, did 2 things. They went fishing and they drove home. This is still considered a simple sentence. Now, where the problems will start to creep in is when we start joining 2 or more sentences. Why we would want to do that, I can tell you right now from reading many student papers. There are few things I can imagine that would be as boring as an entire piece, an entire student essay, an entire short story that's all simple sentences. You want to use some compound sentences. You want to use some complex sentences so that it brings variety to the reader. There are whole chapters on variety. Actually, I'm sorry, I kind of rushed into this. If you don't have a good grammar book, I highly recommend picking one up. This is what we use at my college for when I teach Composition 1, Rules for Writers by it's Macmillan Press, but there are many. If you just go online and do a search for college grammar books, there are dozens of publishing houses that have these. This is just the one that we use. This is for the remedial students because it's a workbook that has exercises and such for them. It's called Focus on Writing. But the rules for writers, any one of those, this one's kind of nice because it's spiral bound, so it lays flat. It's got little tabs for the different sections. You might want to get a hold of a good grammar book. I, from time to time, I'm trying to remember the last time I looked something up, punctuation. I was using ellipsis points and didn't know, is there a space between them or not? It turns out there is. When you do ellipsis points, you know, the three dots at the end,
Right,
it's dot, you hit the period, space, period, space, period, space. So you need spaces there. I didn't know that. And I actually went and got my grammar books out and looked it up. Okay, our difficulties start to come in. Our difficulties start to come in when we begin adding the simple sentences. Henry went fishing. He then drove home. Do we see the problem? I have a subject, verb, I have a subject, a second verb. They are inappropriately punctuated right here. I need something. Now, I run into this all the time with my students. That something needs to be more than a comma. Marks of punctuation actually carry weight, and a comma is not strong enough to show up there by itself. You can use a comma to separate these two sentences, but it must be accompanied by a coordinating conjunction. And those are and, but, or, for, nor, so, and yet. That's all we've got, 7 in English. We have, looks like a U, sorry. One of these coordinating conjunctions must be used with that comma, or you still have a run-on. In this case, the run-on is known as a comma splice. Without the comma at all, it's called a fused sentence. But this is a comma splice. What's great about our coordinating conjunctions is that they each have their own little nuance. And if I'm adding information, but indicates a contrast, etc. Henry went fishing, and would probably work best, and he then drove home. Done. My run-on is fixed. Now, another option. I can put a semicolon. Mm-hmm. I can put a semicolon, and I have now fixed my run-on. Semicolons are interesting marks of punctuation. They are, if you think about what it looks like, it's a period on top of a comma, yes? The semicolon can do something of the work of a period. Like here, just like I could put a period here, right? I could put a period here and start a new sentence. Now my run-on is fixed, but I've said to myself, you know what? I've had a lot of simple sentences. Let's provide some variety. And I'm going to put a compound sentence, and I'm going to join it with a semicolon. The semicolon is an equals sign. What is grammatically the rank of what is on the one side of the semicolon grammatically must be equal to the grammatical rank of what's on the other side. A simple sentence, boom, there's my equal sign. Now, what if I do this? I'm going to wander a little bit into, complex sentences. I'm going to use a subordinating conjunction. After Henry went fishing, he then drove home. Ooh, I just changed this up. I now have a dependent clause and an independent clause. I can no longer use a semicolon because the dependent clause is not grammatically equal to an independent clause. We'll get to clauses in a minute, but I just wanted to show you that there are limitations to using a semicolon. The semicolon, while it can act like a period to separate two independent clauses, it cannot act like a period in all cases. For example, at the end of a paragraph, when you're going to start a new paragraph, you know you wouldn't end the one paragraph with a semicolon. Of course not. It can't do the work fully of a period. So in that sense, it's a little bit like a comma. The other thing about semicolons, and I had a student just this spring, great, intelligent man. I really wish him the best. More toward middle-aged, Hispanic guy, non-native English speaker. And, oh no, I'm so sorry. No, this gentleman was from Iran. I'm thinking of someone else. This gentleman was from Iran. He would turn his paragraphs in with 6 or 8 semicolons. No, the semicolon should be used sparingly. What the semicolon says to the reader is these two ideas on each side of the semicolon, these two ideas are closely related. So I'm showing you that by using the semicolon. Just so use them sparingly and use them purposefully is my point. So this is where we get into trouble, as I said, with when we have a situation joining two simple sentences to have them be a compound sentence. Now, the semicolon, you can also, if you're concerned that the reader might not understand the relationship between the two thoughts, you can put a transitional expression after the semicolon, like maybe this one might work afterwards. And then a comma. Henry went fishing, semicolon, afterwards, comma. With afterwards, I think I would take the then out. Afterwards, he drove home. So how do we fix a run-on then? You're going to use a comma and a coordinating conjunction, the and, but, or, for, nor, so, and yet. You're going to use a semicolon by itself. You're going to maybe use a transitional expression, and then there's a comma afterward. Now, I jumped ahead a little bit, as I indicated, to talk about complex sentences. So a simple sentence is one independent clause. Compound sentence is two independent clauses joined in some way. I used a comma and then a second independent clause. Simple, compound, a complex sentence is a dependent clause joined to an independent clause. So that we're clear on the terminology, a clause has a subject and a verb. A clause has a subject and a verb, unlike a phrase, which might not have a subject or a verb, and it may have neither. But a clause has a subject and a verb. A dependent clause means it cannot stand alone. After the dog barked, I've got a subject, I've got a verb, that makes it a clause, but I've got a subordinating conjunction. The after demands more information. The after says to the reader, you're going to find something else out. There's more information coming. After the dog barked, comma, the cat ran away. I don't know. There we go. Now I have a complex sentence. I have my dependent clause, can't stand alone because of the after, and I have my independent clause, and it works. When the dependent clause comes through, it can also, the dependent clause could come at the end of the sentence. The cat ran away after the dog barked. When it comes at the beginning of the sentence, put a comma, and here's why. It is very possible that you'll end up with a misreading if you don't. When we entered, the fridge was running. Someone could read this through and it would look like when we entered the fridge. No. We didn't enter the fridge. When we entered, comma, the fridge was running. Get a comma, and this dependent clause, notice I put a comma here, independent clause. When we get to commas, generally any information that opens the sentence needs a comma to come after it. When we entered the room, the building, whatever, the fridge was running. Now, those are our run-ons. Those are our basic sentences, types of sentences, and that is how we can sometimes end up in trouble. When you have a dependent clause that isn't appropriately joined to an independent clause. When we entered, waiting to hear more. This says, oh, reader, you're going to find out something else. This is a fragment. I've got a subject, I've got a verb. I do not have a complete thought, and so I've got a fragment. So this is one way fragments show up in your writing. Sometimes fragments show up because somehow the information that all belonged together in a sentence got left out. Henry was fishing in the cold and damp. It's almost as if, and I see this all the time in student writing, it's almost as if the person wrote the sentence and then remembered, oh, right, I wanted to add some detail in the cold and damp. No, that needs to be in the same sentence. In the cold and damp is simply, it's not even a clause, it's a prepositional phrase. Henry was fishing in the cold and damp. There we go. Now we have a full sentence. So watch out for run-ons, watch out for fragments. If you know that these are bugaboos for you, what I often, God bless you, what I often recommend to my students is when you go to proofread, like maybe proofread a page, read it sentence by sentence, capital letter to period, capital letter to period. Don't read the whole thing through. And test. So if you know what, sometimes I get run-ons in my writing, sometimes I get fragments. Start with the capital letter, end with the period, and see, do I have more than one sentence in here, or do I even not have one complete sentence? All right, subject-verb agreement. So the rule is this: verbs must agree in number with their subjects. Period. There aren't exceptions. If you have a singular subject, you must have a singular verb. Henry was fishing. Henry, one person, was, I've got a singular verb. Now, Henry and Ida were fishing. My compound subject, Henry is singular, Ida is singular, but the and just joined them together. And so I must have a plural form of the verb. Sometimes it'll get a little, yes, sometimes it gets a little confusing when the subject isn't clear. Oh, sorry. Each of the girls have brought their own gear. Here's our problem. Of the girls is a prepositional phrase. Of is my preposition, girls is object of the preposition. My subject is each, and each is singular, always. Each, either, neither, the one words like anyone, someone, the body words, anybody, somebody, the thing words, anything, something, they are always singular. And so it seems like have should be correct. Each of the girls have brought their own gear. It is incorrect because have doesn't need to agree with girls, plural, because this is not the subject. The verb must agree with its subject. Singular subject, so I must have a singular verb, has. Each of the girls has brought, and now we have another problem, which we'll get to when we do pronouns, but we may as well fix it right now. Her. Whoa, wait. I've had students tell me, no, but girls is plural, yes, but her refers to each. Her refers to each. Each of the girls has brought her own gear. Singular, singular, singular. So there's one way that we end up with a problem with subject-verb agreement. Another situation comes along. Another situation comes along when we have a compound. When we have a compound subject, one part is singular, one part is plural, and they're joined by or instead of and. Henry or the Smiths were fishing. Okay. Henry or the Smiths were fishing. Let me actually add. Okay. When you have a compound subject, and joins it all together, and you will take a plural verb. In this case, it's not joined by and, it's joined by or. Henry or Ida was fishing. The or, instead of joining them together, the or keeps it apart. So Henry singular or Ida singular was fishing. But in the next example, I have a singular part of my compound subject and then a plural part. Henry or the Smiths were. In this case, the verb is going to agree with this part of the subject that's closer to it. Henry or the Smiths, plural, were fishing. Now I reversed it. The Smiths or Henry was fishing. Because now this is plural, but this is singular. The or keeps them apart. And now I need my singular form of the verb. All right. That's a lot about subjects and verbs. Any questions? Because if not, we're moving on to pronouns. Okay, let's move on to pronouns. All right. So I said one of the more tedious things a person can do is to have to read something that's all simple sentences. No compound sentences, no complex sentences. It's just, oh golly, is it tedious and boring? Oh no. Arguably the most tedious thing would be to read something that no pronouns are used, zero pronouns. Joyce woke up early that day. Joyce got out of bed and went to take Joyce's shower. After Joyce finished Joyce's shower, she went into the, Joyce went into the kitchen. Can you imagine trying to read something like that? No she's, no hers. Oh, I think it would be, most of us would read several sentences and give up. Pronouns are critical in our writing. In an odd way, they allow the reader's mind to be interactive and the reader isn't even realizing it. If you think about it, when you see she or her, the reader's mind goes back to Joyce. The reader is actually making these interconnections in the piece of writing. Sometimes we end up with problems, and I've only picked out a few of them. We end up with problems when we needed a subject form of the pronoun and used an object form or vice versa. You and I were fishing. Here's my subject, my verb. I've got a subject form of my pronoun. You know, we wouldn't say you and me were fishing, you and I. It's been drilled into our heads since we were children in school. You and I, you know, Jim and I, whatever. Okay. Henry wanted to talk to you and I before we left. It almost sounds correct because we're so used to the make sure, you know, you and I were fishing, not you and me, you and I. We've probably corrected children and grandchildren over this one. So this one could almost sound correct. Henry wanted to talk to you and I before we left. No, because in this case, these pronouns, well, the you doesn't matter because it's the same form, but this pronoun is object of this preposition. Henry wanted to talk to, and if you're ever unsure, let the pronoun stand alone. Take away the UN. Henry wanted to talk to I before we left. No, you would know right away that's incorrect. Henry wanted to talk to me before we left. Whatever the pronoun is by itself, it's going to stay that way. Henry wanted to talk to me before we left. Henry wanted to talk to you and me before we left. So be careful that you have your pronoun, the case correct. When you need a subject case, you've got it. When you need an object case, you have that. Now, here's another example. Another example is in a comparison. When we are using pronouns in a comparison, we often get stuck with a problem. So, see the comparison coming up with than? He is faster than me, definitely. If we were to have a foot race, I guarantee you he's going to win. He is faster than me, and that is incorrect. Because this is that one of the other times that I said you can leave a word out in English.
the I.
He is faster than I.
Right.
That is correct because we've actually left a word off the end of the sentence. He is faster than I am. This is actually a subject. We need the subject form of the pronoun, not me, not the object form. We need the subject form because there is a verb. It's simply been left off of the sentence, and that's perfectly acceptable. Again, in English, it's like that you understood in a command or a request. You're allowed to leave this verb off, but don't because the verb was left off, don't let that lead you into a pronoun error. He is faster than I. Because what you're saying is he is faster than I am. Even with all my years, I will sometimes catch myself with this one. I'll be speaking to someone and I'll start to say me, and I'm like, one time, the chair of the English department at the college where I've been teaching, great gal, oh my goodness, Dr. Janet Eber, fabulous, fabulous gal, fabulous boss. She has a mug sitting on her desk, and it says, I am silently correcting your grammar. Oh, let me tell you, when I had to go in to talk to her about a student or something, I'm looking at that mug thinking, make sure everything is correct, Marie. Yeah, I am silently correcting your grammar. He is faster than I. Now, these are basic. I love it. These are basic things. Yes? It's, your, whose. There are other pairs like this. The point of it is, if it has an apostrophe, it is a contraction. It is, you are, who is. If you're ever stuck in your writing, you're like, oh, wait a minute, did I do that? I've caught it once in my own writing, and I was like, oh my goodness, how embarrassing was that? The cat chased its tail. Oh, shoot, do I need an apostrophe or not?
No grammar right now.
If I put an apostrophe here, what am I saying? I am saying it is. The cat chased its tail. No, of course not. The cat chased its possessive. The cat chased its tail. Just remember, if it's got the apostrophe, it is a contraction. Otherwise, it's showing possession. Whose, its, your, they're all showing possession. Your car, whose book, its tail. So if it's showing possession, no apostrophe. If you've got the apostrophe, it means it's a contraction. Now, another way we end up with pronoun errors is with pronoun antecedent agreement. The antecedent is the word the pronoun refers to. If you've got a singular antecedent, you must have a singular pronoun to refer to it. In some cases, you may have a singular and then either feminine or masculine antecedent, and then you will need a feminine or masculine pronoun, his, her, etc. Okay. Child must learn to obey their parents is incorrect because child is singular. I cannot later use their to refer to it. So a child must learn to obey his or her. You say, you know what? I don't want to have to do his, her, he, she, his, her, all the way through my piece of writing. Okay, simple solution. Just make it plural. Children must learn to obey their parents. Ah, there we go. But if you have a singular antecedent, you must have a singular pronoun to refer to the antecedent. I just, very disappointing. I know things have been going this direction. I actually tabbed, I've got an article here, just showed up yesterday. The FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, to be proper, they're doing away with his or her. They find it unnecessarily wordy, and it enforces a gender binary, so they will be using they, them, their, or theirs. Yes, even though it would be grammatically incorrect, and I cannot. I
agree.
It's just use proper grammar. Oh my goodness, use proper grammar. Now, where people often end up with difficulty. Everyone, that's my subject. It is singular. Remember, the thing words, the body words, the one words, everyone, one of the one words is singular. It's indefinite pronoun, and it is always singular. No exceptions. Everyone? Everyone must hand in their papers at 2. Ah, that's incorrect. There refers, this pronoun refers to the antecedent everyone, which is singular. I can't make everyone not singular. And the argument I've gotten from my students over many years is, yeah, but professor, everyone must hand in their papers, but you mean it's a whole room full of people. This is true. However, think of it this way. We're speaking about all those people, individuals, every one, meaning this one and this one and this one. Every one must hand in his or her paper at 2. It's not an option. Everyone, any of those indefinite pronouns, each, either, neither, the one words, the thing words, the body words, they are singular. They must take a singular verb, and they must take a singular pronoun to refer to them. Okay. Keeping an eye on our time because I was told we cannot go over modifier errors. Modifier errors. A modifier is a word or group of words that is giving more information, helping describe other words in the sentence. Henry. Dressed in a raincoat, Henry thought Ida was ready. Who was dressed in the raincoat? If Ida is the one who's ready, then is she the one who's dressed in the raincoat? Or was Henry dressed in a raincoat and he thinks Ida is ready? Dressed in a raincoat, Henry thought Ida was ready is unclear. Maybe when Ida put on her raincoat, Henry could see she was prepared or something. Whatever and this is, by the way, a dangling modifier is when it's at the beginning of the sentence. Whenever there is a situation where it's not clear, wait a minute, is it Henry or is it Ida? Do your reader a favor and make sure that the modifier clearly refers to what it's talking about. Here's another. Henry swatted the wasp that stung him with a newspaper. No. The wasp didn't sting him with the newspaper. The wasp stung him and he swatted it with a newspaper. Henry used a newspaper to swat the wasp that stung him. Oh, much better. And if you haven't ever watched a Groucho Marx Brothers movie, shame on you, you should. Groucho Marx, arguably one of the best modifier errors ever. I do not remember which movie it is, but Groucho Marx is speaking at a dinner party and he says, "One morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas." Now, who was in the pajamas, the elephant or Groucho? One morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas. But he goes on to explain the situation. One morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How an elephant got in my pajamas, I'll never know. Oh, so do you see how silly it is? No, of course the elephant wasn't in his pajamas. And because modifier errors can come across sounding so silly, this is why we look to avoid them. Okay. Commas. We have already, there are several hard and fast rules. We have already taken a look at commas, the comma, and a coordinating conjunction. Yes, when we joined two simple sentences, we've already talked about that. Introductory material. Yes, Henry was fishing yesterday. In any case, Henry went fishing. While Henry was fishing yesterday, the rain began. It doesn't matter if it's one word like yes, or a dependent clause like while Henry was fishing yesterday, comma, after the introductory material, and then your main sentence. Obviously, items in a series. Items in a series, yeah. All right. If you have 3 or more items, they're going to be separated by commas. This we know. 2 items are just separated by the and or the or. 3 or more items, you're going to separate them by commas, including putting a comma after the second to last item. It's known as the Oxford comma, and there are passionate debates over the Oxford comma. Some people argue vehemently against the use. Others are just as passionate that we should be using the Oxford comma. All right. If you have never heard of this case, there was a CNN article. This is not a joke. A group of dairy drivers argued they deserved overtime pay for certain tasks they had completed. The company said they did not. An appeals court sided with the drivers, saying the guidelines themselves were too ambiguous because, wait for it, there was a missing Oxford comma. Not a joke. The drivers got $5 million in back pay because of the missing Oxford comma. So I am very much for Oxford commas. I know AP and CNN and lots of news media. No. We use Oxford commas. Now, non-restrictive clauses. Okay. Sometimes we go to add information to a sentence and the information is being used for purposes of identification. In that case, the information is considered essential and you do not use commas. We're running low on time, so I'm not going to write this out, but the lady in the red hat was blocking my view. Okay. The woman in the red hat, in the red hat is being used to identify which woman I'm talking about. No commas. Sometimes, though, these comments are, I say to my students, I call them, oh, by the way. It's just extra information. Oh, by the way. The woman in the front row who is wearing a red hat is blocking my view. Now I've already identified which woman I'm talking about, the one in the front row. So the fact that she's wearing a red hat is just extra information. Oh, by the way, the woman in the front row who is wearing a red hat is blocking my view. Who is wearing a red hat is separated out by commas because it's considered non-restrictive. It is non-essential. It's not important for the meaning of the sentence. It's just, oh, I thought I'd add this information in. Quotation marks, quotation marks, quotation marks. All right. Always. That period is inside. Commas, and this comma is inside the quotation mark. Periods and commas always go inside. The only exception is when you are doing your citing research, you're doing research and you're citing information, and you're doing parenthetical references and in-text citations. In that case, then the period would be outside because you would have your parentheses and the information, and then you put your period. It's the only time. Periods and commas always go inside. I don't know why I keep leaving the end out. Will Henry be fishing? Oops, sorry. Will Henry be fishing? He asked. Please notice that the H is lowercase. No, wait, a question mark is an end mark. Yes, it is. In this case, though, we have two things going on here. We have the quoted material, and then we have the complete sentence. The question mark ends the quote. The period ends the sentence. So the H is lowercase because I haven't finished my sentence yet. The he is still in the middle of the sentence. Just rushing through, watch out. Now this isn't strictly grammar, but watch out for wordiness, surrounded on all sides. If the enemy has me surrounded, I know the enemy is on all sides. I'm surrounded. Brown in color. Your reader knows brown is a color. In the month of August, the reader knows August is a month. End result. End result. No. The result comes at the end. You can just say result. Refer back. Again, if you're referring to something, you are going back to it. Free gift. Come on. Oh, you'll get a free gift. No, I've never had to pay for a gift in my life. Each and every. Just use one or the other. Each or every. Don't use both. And just watch out for unnecessary clutter due to the fact that you can say because. At the present time, you can say today. No, it didn't need a comma here because I have my question mark. Will Henry be fishing? Question mark. My quote is a question, and then he asked. Good question, though. It is a fact that it is clear that. Yes, two twins. Thank you. Exactly. Try to cut out all that unnecessary fluff. Your writing will be tight. It will be concise. Get rid of all that extra stuff. Here, an example that I use for my students. In the early part of the month of August, a hurricane was moving threateningly toward Houston. I know that August is a month. I don't have to say a month. If it's the early part of the month, I don't have to say part of. If a hurricane is moving toward Houston, it is threatening the city. Look at how much we can get rid of. In early August, a hurricane threatened Houston. Oh, no, but we just lost a lot of words. Yes, and they were meaningless. They added nothing to the structure of the sentence. They added nothing to help your reader's comprehension. Get rid of all that extra stuff. Okay, not technically grammar, but I raced through all of this because I'm being very mindful of our time. As I said, the handout is in the handout place if you want to print it out, just a little basic. I do highly recommend that you get a good grammar book if it works for you. Because I've taught so for many years, I get them free, of course. I do have a book up for sale. It's on the website. I think I'd mentioned it, Scenario 5. It is the story of a pandemic. And the uncanny thing is that I started this 10 years ago, and my readers who proofread for me kept running across things saying, but this is happening now with the current pandemic. So I'm not a prophet. Oh, golly, please, I'm not a prophet. I just happen to, yeah. And yes, in terms of my passion for the topic, I correct the grammar on road signs, on billboards. Grammar is my thing. So are there any questions? We're good. Okay. Then I thank you so much for participating.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned grammar books. Do you have any recommendations?
You know, if you just go online and search for a good college, as I said, the college where I am, we use Rules for Writers by Macmillan, but there are, and I have no connection to the Macmillan Company. I'm just saying this is what I use when I teach Composition 1. But any good college grammar handbook, what I kind of like about this one is the spiral bound, so the lay flat. It's got tabs for the different sections. The point of it is it covers everything. There's a section on how to conduct research. The handout, I see the question, the handout should be on the dashboard page for the conference. On the right-hand side, you scroll down a bit and you'll see some tabs. You'll see brown bars for bios, for editors and things. And then there's a yellow bar that says handouts. And when I checked it before, it was in there. So
It definitely was in there.
Right now.
I found them. It was in there.
Oh, perfect. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah. So it's definitely on the conference page. Go ahead and print it out. I will tell you right now, I caught at least one typo. Let's see how good you are. Oh, punctuation inside. Okay. Periods and commas always go inside. Question marks, exclamation points, it depends. Is the entire sentence a question, or is just the quote a question? Because that will make a difference as to whether or not it goes inside or outside. And I didn't put that in my handout. Maybe I should have, I apologize, but periods and commas always go inside. So anyway, it is 3:48. I need to go. I don't know if somebody else uses room 8 after me, but I do need to be respectful of someone else's time. So there it is in a nutshell. I wish you all the best in your writing. God bless you. He's got work for you to do. Go at it. And maybe we'll see each other next year in person. All right, I am going to check out, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.